Welcome back to a new video. Before I say anything else, I apologise if you hear the builders in the background. There's nothing I can do about it. Now is the only time I can film this video, so I'm sorry if you can hear them. You probably can, they're very loud. I hate them too. So today I'm going to be walking you through my NEWT TBR. I wasn't sure for a long time if I was going to do the NEWTs because obviously there's this, ongoing drama with her, who we're not going to talk about because I hate her, I do not support her anyway. Let's move on. But I've decided I am going to do the NEWTs because I love Harry Potter and I will always love Harry Potter regardless of what she keeps doing. And because obviously the readathon is now changing because of her, this is my first and last chance to do it now because previously I haven't been able to because I was in school and not that well really. So I want to do it at least this once, so I am going to do it, but just know that I hate her just as much as the rest of you. So when I did the owls, I did my TBR in the vlog, but that took up quite a lot of time, so I decided I was going to do a separate TBR video because honestly there's a lot of books to get through, 17 to be exact, and there's also slightly more rules around this one, so I thought I'd just do a separate video. So if you watched the owls vlog, well, if you didn't, I suggest you go back and watch them because it's kind of like a two-parter, so you should probably go and watch that first. But I completed all of the books, so I got all of my owls, which means I'm completely open to do whatever career I want to. Now, there is a lot of books to read, and I've chosen a very complicated career. I probably would have gotten for an easier one, but since this is sort of like my first and last chance to do it, I thought, no, you know what, I'm going to go the whole hog and do the one I really want to do, even though it's a lot of books. So I've decided to go for the Alchemist career. I actually have the printout here that Book Bros made. I printed out everything because I'm a big nerd and I have it in a folder. That's actually the wrong one. This is Alchemist. I know what I'm doing. So this is probably one of the most difficult careers because it does require all of the owls, as you can see here, but I got all my owls, so that's fine. But then in terms of the NEWTs, it requires an O in Ancient Runes, an O in Arithmancy, an O in Herbology, an O in Potions, O in Transfiguration, and an E in Astronomy. So the way the NEWTs works is slightly different to the owls because for the owls you just pick one book for each subject, and you read them and then you win. But for the NEWTs there's 3 books per subject and they each stand for a pass grade. So the first book will give you an A, which stands for acceptable. The second for that subject gives you an E in it, and then you move on to O. And I also believe you have to read them in order. So you have to read the A book before you can read the E book, and the E before you can read the O. So it's a little bit more structured, and there's you have to think about it a bit more. You can't just pick a random book to read. You have to read them in a certain order sometimes, so it's a bit more complicated. So in order to become an alchemist, I am taking Ancient Runes, Arithmancy, Herbology, Potions, Transfiguration and Astronomy, and I need an O in all of them apart from Astronomy, which I only need an E in, which means it's 17 books, which is quite a lot of books. However, I do think it's perfectly doable. I mean, we have a whole month and 17 books is 4 books per week plus 1, so 5 1 week. So I think it's perfectly doable as long as I make sure I'm dedicating a couple of days a week to mainly just reading. So I think it's perfectly doable. That being said though, there are some quite big books on this list, so we shall see. I am going to do it though. I am determined to finish it because this is my first and last chance, so I am going to do it. Look at me waving my Apple Pencil around. I made this super cute list. You can't really see it. I'll put a screenshot of it up on screen of all of the books and subjects I'm going to read and everything. It's very cute and I love it very much. It only took me 40 minutes. So hopefully that explains the rules. So now let's just get into the actual TBR. I'm just going to go through the subjects in alphabetical order because that's the order I have them written down in. So let's start with Ancient Runes. In order to pass Ancient Runes with an acceptable, you must read a book with an author's name who starts with the letter B. It can be the first or the last name. So for this one I chose Are We All Lemmings and Snowflakes by Holly Bourne. I have quite a few Holly Bourne books, but I chose this one just because there's quite a few I haven't read yet, and this was just the most like the one that I bought the longest time ago that I haven't read yet, so I just picked this one. I specifically love her normal series, those are the ones I read first, but I've read a few of her other books as well, and I just really love Holly Bourne, so I'm just going to read this one, and maybe I'll get to the other ones at some point. In order to get an E in Ancient Runes, you must read a classic. So this was a pretty easy choice because I really don't own that many classics, so I went for The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is the only classic I own that I don't hate, because the only other ones I own are by Charles Dickens, and I don't hate his writing. I actually quite like his writing, except I had to study him at school, and so therefore it's permanently tainted, and I'm not sure I'll ever like it. So we're going with this one. Also, it's cute. It's like one of those smaller paperbacks. Like, see, it's like smaller. In order to get an O in Ancient Runes, I have to read a romance. This was really difficult because I'm not a huge romance person. I love romance when it's in a book that's about something else, but I don't read just romance books where the whole plot is just the romance, because I think that's lame. Like, I think there's so much more to life than just romance. But I found one, thankfully. So I chose What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. I bought this ages ago. I actually bought one for my friend and one for myself at the same time because it was like buy one get one free. So, you know, I think because I'm pretty sure it's a romance. It's meant to be like a meet cute, and it's a gay one, which is like great. So I'm going with this one because this is the only solid romance book I could find on my shelves. So moving on to arithmancy. In order to get an acceptable in arithmancy, I must read a non-fiction. So I chose Feminism Is, and it's actually by quite a few people, so let me just read their names. It's written by Alexandra Black, Laura Buller, Emily Hoyle, and Dr. Megan Todd. And the foreword is written by Gemma Kenny. So it's written by quite a few people. I have a whole shelf full of non-fiction that I've bought over the years and have never gotten around to, so I just picked the smallest one I could. Well, I mean, it's quite large in terms of this, but it's fairly thin. And like the words, there's quite a lot of pictures because I got 17 books to get through, so, you know. In order to get an E in arithmancy, I must read a book that ends on an uneven number. This is quite a specific one, and luckily this one worked out quite well because I've chosen Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. If you watch The Owls, then you know that I read City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab for one of those prompts. And I've been wanting to read this one ever since, but I just never got around to it because, as you'll know, if you watch The Owls, then I really love City of Bones, even though it did creep me out and I slept with the light on for a month. But, you know, so I wanted to read this one and I thought it would be quite fitting to read it in the NEWT since I read the first one in The Owls, so it's like full circle, you know. But I probably will be sleeping with the light on for at least a month because the other one really did scare me. But, you know, it's like I love it, but it scares me to death. I'm a little bit of a coward when it comes to this sort of stuff, but they are really good, and it does end on an uneven number. I don't know if you can see that, but it says 287, which is an uneven number. In order to get an O in arithmancy, I have to read a book that has pages between 200 and 299 pages, which is, again, fairly specific and was actually quite challenging because I find that most books seem to either have 300 plus pages or are like less than 100. So this is actually quite difficult, but I managed to find one. So I've chosen The Dark Between Stars by Atticus. Like, can we just appreciate this cover for a moment? Because it's stunning. Like, all of Atticus's books are stunning, and there's actually another one in this TBR. Like, I love it so much, it's so gorgeous. This is a poetry book, so it should also be a fairly quick read, and it does have between 200 and 299 pages. Let me check exactly how many it has. It has 222 pages, so there you go. Also, please just continue to appreciate this because it's stunning. So, moving on to Herbology. In order to get an A, I have to read a book that has flowers on the cover. Now, I chose A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is possibly teensy bit cheaty because it doesn't, like, I mean, it has roses in the title and it does have, like, thorns, which is, like, it's not directly flowers, but it's roses, so it's like the stem of the rose just isn't on the cover, but it's like the bottom part of the rose. So it counts, and it has roses in the title, so I think it counts, okay? In order to get an E in Herbology, you have to read a book that you think might be impactful. This was really difficult because it's a very vague prompt, you know, it's really up to you, but you know, I managed to find one, and I chose This Book Will Help You Change the World by Sue Turton. I bought this, again, this is another non-fiction that I bought like 3 years ago and haven't gotten around to reading yet, but I think it will be good. You never know, maybe I'll change the world. If I could change the world, I'd make mayonnaise illegal. So, in order to get an O in Herbology, you have to read a book that was longer than your previous read. So, for that one, I chose A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book, and that was the first, and you saw the first book a few prompts ago. The second book is coming, but that's in a later prompt, just in case you were confused. And I chose this one because it's literally the biggest book on my TBR, which means it doesn't matter when I read it, it will always be bigger than the previous read because it's the longest book on my TBR. It has 699 pages, so I think we can say it's a pretty long book. Okay, potions. In order to get an A, I have to read a book that has the word sky in the title or sky on the cover. So I chose The Truth About Magic by Atticus. It doesn't have sky in the title, but it most definitely does on the cover. And yet again, let us appreciate this cover because it's gorgeous. In order to get an E in potions, I have to read a book with an author name that starts with the letter D. Again, it can be the first or the last name. So I chose The Trouble with Perfect by Helena Duggan. I read this is the second book in the series. I read the first one. I think it was in a readathon. It wasn't the Owls, it was like one of my 24-hour readathons or something. So you can probably find that on my channel. So yeah, I want to read this one because it's a kid's book, so it should be a slightly easier read. And also it's the only book on my shelf that has an author name with the letter D. Because this one was really hard and I was getting really worried that I wasn't going to be able to find one. But I did. So here we go. So in order to get an O in potions, I have to read a book that has over 450 pages. So I chose A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So here is the second book, in case you were wondering. So it's very convenient that I've chosen to read the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy for this because I wanted to read them this year anyway, and I just haven't got around to it for one reason or another. So it's useful that I can now read them as part of the readathon. However, I am going to have to plan very carefully what order I read the books in, because obviously some of them you have to unlock the previous book before you can read it, but I can't then, like I can't read them out of order, you know, because I have to take into account the fact that I can't read certain books before each other because I have to unlock the previous grade before I can move on to the second. But I also can't, like, I can't read the second book and then the first book and then the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. I need to read those in order as well. So I'm going to have to plan it a bit carefully, but I think it'll be fine. So, moving on to Transfiguration. In order to get an A in Transfiguration, I have to read a book with an animal on the cover or in the title. So I chose The Beast Player by Nahoko Yuhashimi. Yuhashi, I don't know, I'm so sorry. But yeah, you can see that it clearly has an animal on the cover. I believe it's a wolf, and it's really multicoloured and cool. Not gonna lie, I totally bought this book just because the cover was so sick. So, in order to get an E in Transfiguration, you have to read a book that has dragons or fire on the cover or in the title. Now, just like in the Owls, because the Owls, if you watch that vlog, then you'll know that the Owls highlighted a very big gap in my bookshelf, which was that I didn't have any books other than Harry Potter itself that featured around witches and wizards, which was obviously very distressing. And this NEWT has also highlighted another very distressing gap, which is that I do not have any books about dragons, which is shocking because, like, literally my surname is Drage, which literally translates to dragon in Norwegian. So, like, I'm literally called Samantha Dragon, and I don't have any books about dragons. Like, I mean, dragons do briefly appear in Harry Potter, and I do have a trilogy that it is quite heavily dragon based, but it was kind of lame if I'm being honest, and I gave it like 2 stars. I didn't really like it. So yeah, that is a problem, and I'm going to be attempting to rectify that just as I rectified the Witches and Wizards gap. But you can also use fire, so I'm using Grace and Fury by Tracy Banghart for this prompt. Again, I'm like 3 years late to this hype, but it has fire on the cover, see, so it counts. I am disgusted that I don't have any books about dragons though. So, in order to get an O in Transfiguration, you have to read a hardcover book or a book that you find hard to read. This was again a little bit vague, and like in the end I just went for reading a hardcover because it was just easier. So I'm gonna go with Calm the Fuck Down by Sarah Knight, because again this was another one that's been on my TBR for like 2 or 3 months now, and I've never gotten around to it for one reason or another. So I'm gonna read it in the readathon, and then I can't not read it. Also I wasn't sure what I was gonna do for a book that I find hard to read. I suppose I could have read one in like Japanese or something. I would have found that hard to read since I can't read Japanese. And now on to the final subject, which is astronomy. I only need an E in this one, whereas I need an O in all the others. So to get an A, I need to read a book that has a star on the cover or in the title. So I've chosen The Signs by Caroline Faulkner. This was like the first non-fiction book I ever purchased, like 4 years ago or something, when I was first getting into non-fiction. As you can see, it's about the astrology signs and stuff. I was like, what, 13, 14 at the time, so, you know, quite typical teenage girl sort of read. And I did, you can see there's a bookmark in it, because I did actually very briefly start it, like, I didn't get very far through, because the reason I stopped reading it beforehand was because there was a link in the book to a website where you could go and like find your own star chart or whatever it was when you were born or something. But I went to the website and it was like broken, it didn't work, which then pissed me off, so I was like, I'm not going to read it now. And I've just never gotten around to picking it back up, but I'm going to read it now. Also, can we appreciate how well my bookmark matches my book? Yeah, it does have little stars on the title, that's why it counts for this one. And now, the final book I have to read for the NEWT in order to get an E in astronomy is a sci-fi book. This was so hard. Like, the other ones I was like, oh, you know, there were a few that I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I have one, but I found one and it was fine. This one, I actually had to do some serious Googling. I got a load of books off my shelf that I thought might fall into the sci-fi category, and I had to Google what genre they were, because I don't read sci-fi. Like, it's not really my thing. Like, I love Star Wars, but that's like as far as sci-fi goes in my world. So I was really worried about this one. I thought, oh no, I might have to like order a book or something, but no, it was fine because I have Warcross by Marie Lu. Again, I'm like 5 years late to this train, but you know. So yeah, I was really worried that I wasn't gonna have a book for this, and actually, like, I do have a Star Wars book, but honestly that's it's more of a collector's thing rather than an actually gonna read it thing. And I do have some books by, I've forgotten what he's called, but you know the guy who wrote the Maze Runner? Well, I've got his other trilogy, which I think is also technically sci-fi, but again, I've read it before, and it's like, it's a trilogy, so I don't want to read a trilogy, so you know. But yeah, we're going with Warcross. So that is my NEWT TBR. It is a lot of books, quite a lot of big books as well, especially I think the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy is probably where I'm going to run into the most friction, because they are definitely the biggest books on the list, and they're also like the heaviest because they're high fantasy, I believe, and so there's going to be quite a lot of lore, and it's going to they're going to be quite heavy, so I think I'm going to try and get those read pretty quickly. But like, I'm not going to leave them till last, because otherwise I think I will struggle. But it also means that I need to plan a little bit, because some of them are not the first books. They're like E or O, which means I have to read either A and or E beforehand. So I will need to plan a little bit, but I think I'm going to be fine, and well, I know I'm going to be fine because I'm determined to do it, so I'm going to do it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing about all the books I'm going to read. Are you taking part in the NEWTs? I know quite a few people aren't anymore, but I still really want to, so you know, please tell me down below if you are, and leave your TBR down below. I'd love to know what you're reading as well, and like what career you're going for and stuff, because I know that like I love this readathon because it's so like it's more than just the average, oh, you read like 7 books in a week and then you win, yay. It's like there's like structure and lore to it and everything. But yeah, like it if you enjoyed, subscribe so that you can see the actual NEWT vlog and whether I managed to complete it. So yeah, subscribe so you don't miss that, and I will see you in the NEWTs vlog.